What we have here is a brand new Epiphone Joe Bonamassa signature model Les Paul. And these are really cool. I just got this in. This is hot out of the box. I'm going to show you how I check electric guitar for setup. This came from Dave's Guitar Shop in Wisconsin. They're a good shop. I bought probably 4 guitars from them. It comes to you with a quote setup, which is different from my setup, which is understandable. You know, they ship a lot of guitars, and I'm very picky about my setup. So, but I'll show you what I found fresh out of the box. This guitar. First of all, this is really pretty. It's got that. I mean, you can go find better videos than this, but it's got this really cool root beer sparkle thing, and it really changes colors as you move it around in the light. I wanted this guitar for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's got P90s on it, and I have another Epiphone Les Paul with humbuckers on it, and I wanted the color. I wanted the fact that it's a Bonamassa approved guitar, and it's got some, it's got better capacitors in it. It's got better stuff like that. The price is super reasonable on these things. They sell out every single year, and this one came up, and so I was feeling sorry for myself, and I needed a new guitar, so I grabbed it. I've been actually watching these for about a year, waiting for the right one to pop up. This one came up. I bought it from Dave's Guitar Shop. It was fast shipping, man. I ordered it on like Saturday, and this is Wednesday, and it's here in New Mexico by FedEx. Which the point is they got it shipped and they got it packed. Superb packing job. So I'm gonna show you what I found on this thing, and then we're gonna check it out and play it a little bit. The first thing I do is, okay, I plugged it in and played it. It makes noise, good. But I noticed immediately that it frets out up here. So the string is literally laying on the frets, upper frets out here, especially on the treble string. Let's plug the piggy in, and I'll show you. Noise, right? And I have the microphone on, yeah. I'm using my not normal rig here, so I got to kind of play with this a little bit. I got the microphone hanging up here. I've got the camera's not going to focus as close as I want it to, so we're going to have to do the best we can do. All my GoPros are down at the other place, so close-up shots. I guess I could use my phone. Anyway, let's get on with this, okay? So. And there it goes. Not clear. And when I looked at, and that's just using my fingers. So when I look at it, I can see that it is clearly hitting the fret right there. I mean, it is absolutely barely clearing. So, all right, we got some setup we could do here. So the very first thing I always look at on any guitar, no matter what it is, acoustic, mandolin, electric, everything, bass, everything. What is the neck relief? Okay? So just to do a quick check of neck relief, I have videos on this, lots of videos showing why I do not like neck relief. Search for that on my channel. Why I do not like neck relief, and I demonstrate why I don't. But basically, when you have a neck relief like this, a curve, it creates a dip in the middle of the neck, and that creates the illusion of a hump up here. So I want the flattest neck possible. The reason your guitars don't come like that is because the fretwork must be perfect, and the neck will vary a little bit with humidity. And so if you set your neck very flat, your neck relief very flat, and the humidity skyrockets, your neck's going to backbone, you're going to have a buzz situation, and you need to adjust it a little bit. Factories don't deal with people. They set it for the least common denominator here, and usually that's neck relief. But let's check the neck relief first, okay? So the quick way to do this is to hold the string on the first fret and hold it up here at the body, which would be this, which is going to be about the 13th fret on this guitar. I have another video showing you the difference between using the straight edge, and just using the string. Go check that out. For the purpose of my purposes, the string is fine, it's consistent, I know how to do it. And so I'm going to just hold the low E down here, and I'm going to hold it up here at the 13th, 14th fret, and we're going to check it right here, And listen to this. First of all, it's a ton of relief. I can tell you how much relief it is if you want me to. I'm going to put a capo on here. And I'm going to guess it's up in the range of 18 thousandths, possibly even 20 thousandths of an inch right now. So here's 16. If it's anything above 12, I don't want it. If it's anything above 10, I don't want it. So I'm going to hold it back down here. I'm going to come back up in the middle. A lot of traffic out there. Sorry about that. It's not 16. Let's try 8, just for fun. The way I do it is to put it on my shoulder here. A lot of people say, oh, that increases the, it's going to change the relief. No, it's not going to change the relief. If you have any questions about that, check it yourself. Okay, check it in 15 different ways. Like check it sitting here, check it sitting here in playing position, put it on your shoulder, compare them, find out for yourself. For me, no difference. I'm just resting the guitar. It's just good angle. I'm not putting any pressure on it. It's not going to change the relief any appreciable amount. The great thing and the reason I do it like this is so I can get a backlight, so I can really see what's going on here. Okay, so I'm just going to set the thing up here. I'm going to run this. So we have 8 thousandths of an inch of relief, which isn't really that bad. Just a little bit more than I want. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is take the supplied truss rod wrench here, and I know what I want. I know what the relief is. I'm not just randomly adjusting the relief here. Now, this way is tighten, this way is loosen. I know that. If you ever have any question about that, you can take something like a bottle and you can lay it on here and you can pretend that the cap is the nut. And so this way is loosen, this way is tighten, and we're going to tighten it to take out just a little bit of relief. I like to always loosen it just a little bit first so I can get a feel for this. And what I notice about this immediately, I like to actually do it this way. It's tight. I'm trying to loosen it and it's tight. So guess what we have here? This is a two-way truss rod because it should immediately loosen. When I go this way to tighten, it's going to go to a loose spot, guaranteed. And there you go. See, it's actually getting easier. So what it's doing is it's going into the loose spot. A two-way truss rod has a spot where this is tightened and this is loosened, and there's a spot in the middle where it just kind of flips back and forth and doesn't do anything. A lot of people are scared when they go to turn it, and the two-way truss rod is pretty tight, and they think, oh my gosh, I'm going to break it. You probably won't, but two-way truss rods are very, very sensitive. Doesn't take much turning. A one-way truss rod, which is, I have a video on this, go watch it, but a one-way truss rod just has a rod with one thread of the screw down here, and it's a passive truss rod. It only goes this direction. Two-way truss rod goes both ways. It can add relief, it can let relief out. Well, I'm not a big fan of two-ways, but they are what I would consider an upgrade because they solve some problems. So anyway, we're dealing with a two-way truss rod here. So I'm going to go this way to what should be tightened, but it actually feels like it's loosening. And we're going to take a look at that relief. And wow, that's a powerful truss rod. Two-way truss rods are very powerful. And just that little bitty turn is already flattening this thing. It's going down. I'm going to check the D string just as a double check here. And I've got just a little bit of relief. I've probably got about 4 thousandths of an inch of relief now. The action, of course, went way down when I do that because the action is affected by the truss rod. You don't want to be adjusting the action with the truss rod, but it will affect it, so you need to know that. And that's why I did the truss rod first before I did anything to the action. I didn't even care about the action until I get that truss rod where I want it. And that's what we just did. So I got some relief out of the neck, which again is my personal preference, and I have a lot of good reasons as to why I do not like relief. And it still has some. It's got about 4,000. I cut it in half. Just right, cover back on. This is all stuff that you can do yourself. You don't have to go rushing off to your guitar tech or your big box center. The reason I say big box center is because people who buy Epiphones are going to be likely to go to the big box centers rather than to a small independent luthier for the setup. Just because we're cheap. You know, I mean, I buy it. Okay. So I cut the relief in half because I already know from experience. I used to do this for a living anyways. I do this a lot. And I already know from experience that I don't want, 8/1000ths is not bad, but I would much rather have 4/1000ths. You know, it just makes that little extra bit of comfort in the middle of the neck. Okay, now, second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check the nut height. And what I do here, just a quick check, is to hold it up here. Again, I have videos on this. I'm just showing you this in real life. I have a video on how to check the nut. Search my channel. Everything I know about guitar nuts. I know all about you. So the easiest way to do this is to hold the string down between the 2nd and the 3rd fret, and it should absolutely barely clear the 1st fret. And then that means that the nut slot is the same as fret height. I don't want to explain why, but basically if you put a capo on here, then the string is at fret height. You put a capo here, the string is at fret height. You get to the nut, the slot should be exactly as if there was a 0 fret there. So I'm going to pop this up here, and I see some clearance on the low E. I like to use this method that I call the extrapolation technique. And people very often misunderstand what I'm doing here. But I am measuring the 1st fret height, but I'm not doing it to any kind of absolute number. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fret it here at the 1st fret. I'm going to measure the clearance at the 2nd fret, and then I'm going to extrapolate that back to the open string. And what this does is just gives me a second check on this thing, and it's also a little bit more accurate check for me because you're measuring a bigger gap rather than a tiny, tiny little hair gap that you can just barely see. A little bit of a difference between here and here extrapolates out into a larger distance when you're actually fretting the string. So I like to double check this. And so I'm going to take, here's an 8, 10, and a 12. I'm going to fret at the 1st fret. I'm going to measure the gap here at the 2nd fret. And God, it's right on, you know, it's laying on the, we're going to have to just go ahead and, we're going to have to crank some action here before I can do anything. No, not really. We're good. So, yeah, it's super, super low right now. That's fine. We can work with that. It's just a smaller gap than I would like. Let's take 6/1000ths. Okay, 6/1000ths of an inch barely clears when I fret the 1st fret and I measure the 2nd fret. This measurement is completely, absolutely dependent upon the action. So you cannot just take that number and blindly apply it to anything else. That's why it's an extrapolation technique, and it's relative to the action, which makes it kind of useful. So if I'm getting 6/1000ths of an inch here, I know from experience that it's going to increase as it goes back. I want 8/1000ths of an inch open, and then I'm going to allow another 2/1000ths for wear and tear and general fudge. So I want to see this string open at 10/1000ths of an inch. 8 to 10/1000ths of an inch. So I'm going to throw a 10 in here and pop it up under here. And it's clearing by a lot. I can't bring the camera over, but it is really clearing. I bet it's more, I bet it's 14, maybe 16, 18/1000ths of an inch. Let's try 18. Remember, I wanted it at 10/1000ths of an inch. 18 pushes the string. 16 is pretty good. And 14, I have an air gap. So 16/1000ths of an inch, I wanted a 10. The nut, the low E is about 6/1000ths of an inch too high. It's going to pull just a little bit out of tune. The guitar can play just a little bit easier, a little bit more consistently. So I'm going to grab my nut files here. This is the part you probably can't do as an amateur. But man, if you invest in some real nut files, you can do this. And they're not all going to be off. Usually, most of the time, it's the low E, the A, the D maybe. The rest of the strings are usually pretty good on guitars. It's the low E that's generally off. So I've got a 46 thousandths of an inch nut file right here. And I'm going to just pull that low E out of there. Come in here. And I have videos on this, but basically you split the angle between the fingerboard and the headstock. So I like to just put my finger into here, and that gives me an automatic pretty good gap. And you certainly don't want to overdo this. That's why, another reason, I like to shoot for about 2 thousandths of an inch high, because it does give me a little bit of a fudge factor. So I'll do the quick and dirty check to see how I'm doing here. And it's going down. This looks like a micarta nut rather than bone, and that's fine for this guitar, you know. One of these days I might replace it. So 6, 8, 10. I'm going to start with the 12 to see how I'm doing. And I'm doing good. It's still a little high. It's probably about 14. Got to get a feel for this as to how fast it's going to fire. And this again is why they don't do this in the factory. You know, it's time consuming. It feels like bone. Yeah, that's bone. The dust coming off of it is bone. So we're at 12 now. 10 still has quite a bit of clearance, so a little bit more. It's kind of chalky bone. It's not really a super great bone, but yeah, that's bone. You can hear it. Perfect. Now that string is just absolutely, I mean, the tiniest gap, like this. It is just absolutely barely clearing. And I'm going to double check it with a 10 thousandths open. We're clearing. We're good. So I'm going to check the rest of the strings. Hold it down here between the 2nd and 3rd frets. Okay, that's good. So what I've done before I've even looked at the action at this point, I've got the relief set and I double checked the nut slots. I adjusted a couple of nut slots. You're not going to be able to do the nut slots accurately unless you invest in a set of nut files, which you can get. You know, they're about $10 each on eBay. And if you're not a professional, you're not going to use them every single day. And so you can do all right. You can also get, let's say you have a 20. You could use the 20 to set 3 strings on here. Because it's going to have a round bottom, the string is going to sit down in this groove anyways. You're never going to have a slot that completely matches the string, or the string wouldn't fit in it. It would be so tight that it would bind into a tuning. So nut slots are always just 1 thousandths or 2 thousandths of an inch larger than the string, and the string sits down in the bottom of the slot. And as long as you have a nice curved slot, the slot's going to be a little bit wider. So you could use a 20 for your 10 thousandths of an inch string. You really could. It'd be better if you had a 13. 20 is going to leave you with 5 thousandths of an inch on either side of the 10 thousandth string, right? 10 thousandths of an inch, and this is a 20, so that's 5 on each side. And dudes, you know, human hair is 3 thousandths of an inch, so you could get by with the 20. It'd be better if you buy the 13. But the point of all this is you could buy a 13, you could buy a 20, and then you could buy a 36. So you could do this with 4 files. And what you do with the smaller files to get to the bigger string, so if you have a 36 and you need to go to the 46, you roll the file. You cut it like this, and you roll it. And you can make a wider groove with that. So with 4 files, you can do 6 strings. You can do 3 files and you can get 6 strings. It's really worth the investment. It really is. If you do 3 of these setups, you paid for the nut files. And plus, you know what you're doing, and you can set the guitar where you want it instead of having to rely on a tech all the time and rushing down to the guitar store just to make a simple adjustment or a check. I'm trying to teach you how to do this yourself. Okay. All right. We got the nut slots. We got the relief thumb. Now we're going to check the action. And I can already tell you that it's extremely low. It's almost sitting on the frets here. So before I do anything, it's not even worth measuring it right now because it's so low. So I'm going to pop me screwdriver in here, and I think I'm set to screwdriver mode. And we're going to raise the action. Set it in here in the bridge. Let's get up here so you can see this. Here's your screws for an adjustment. On a Les Paul, you can do this under tension. I wouldn't adjust a mandolin under tension, but electric guitar strings are so slack, and this is all metal and everything, that you can do it under tension. So you just turn this sucker a little bit, do the bass side. Raise it up. I'm just guessing at it right now. I know, for me, I like on electric guitars, on Telecasters, Stratocasters, Fenders, I like to have a low E at the 12th fret of about 84 thousandths of an inch, running down to about 76 on the high. On Les Paul, I can go a little bit lower just because I like to. And I like to have about 80 thousandths of an inch here, running down still to about 76 thousandths of an inch. And this is, it's a little flexible. It gives you a good starting point, okay? Everybody, use feel. Well, feel's great, but every guitar feels different right off the bat. And so I'm going to start with a point that I know to be good. So I'm going to take 76 thousandths of an inch worth of feeler gauges. I'm going to throw a 4 in there. This is the 4. So now I have 80 thousandths of an inch right here. I'm going to roll it under the 12th fret here. And I still got to go up. Let's see what we have over here at the high E. The high E is not looking too bad. It's going to take just a little bit more. A little bit there. This is probably going to take about a couple turns. Another reason to measure is so that you can communicate with somebody as to, you can record it, okay? So you get a guitar that's set up really good. This guitar, I get it set up really good. I like it. I love it. I write the measurements down. And then if the humidity changes or your bridge falls off or anything like that happens, you can go back to where you were. I remember reading an interview with Rene Martinez, who set up the guitars for Stevie Ray Vaughan, and he was talking about the first time that Stevie came into the shop. And the first thing that Ray did was write down the starting specs. And he said, I can go back to those specs, you see. So it's good to be able to measure, because if you can't measure, you can't write down those starting specs, and you're just going to get out there and you're going to get lost, and you're not going to be able to get back to home base again. I do everything like this. When I set up a bow for archery, I measure it. I measure the distance of the air, the height of the air, everything. And I can go back. I can take that bow completely apart, and I can put it right back together exactly where it was. Fenders, you're not going to take the neck off of a Les Paul, but on Fenders, you can take the neck off, and you can come right. You can have a pile of parts on the bench, and you can come right back to exactly where it was. Measure your stuff. Don't be scared of it. It's stupid to not measure and be scared of it. Okay? So I've got 80 thousandths of an inch here, and what do you know? Low E's clearing. Let's check 76 here. Now, interestingly enough, the G and the D are a little bit high. I don't think it's going to be a problem on this one yet, because I haven't played it yet. You only got you're adjusting the whole tailpiece at an angle here, so it's not a Strat or a Tele where you can adjust each individual height on that. If you really needed to lower an individual string, you could come in here and you could file. You could file the pieces here and cut the groove a little bit deeper, or you could go into the bottom of the thing and sand it down to lower that string to a certain height. It's close enough that I don't think it's going to bother me on something like this. If it was way high, then it would bother me, because again, it's that stair step thing, and these strings are off. And how do you adjust that? Well, you come into the thing, sand the saddle down, individual saddle down from the bottom, and you can lower it that way. But I don't think it's going to be a problem. Anyway, 76 thousandths, and I'm at 80 over here. So let's take a look at the clearance here. And first of all, I got to do is come over here and look at it. And that string is clearing that fret easy. I'm getting lots of clearance now. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of clearance up there. Where when we first started this process, those strings were just almost touching the fret. They were a gnat's hair off of the fret. Now we're more than a gnat's hair. We are probably about 6 thousandths of an inch, 4 thousandths of an inch off the fret. That's going to be plenty. So I'll show you. Those are good. Nice clear notes. I should get it in tune. Alright, so there's your setup. There's a quick setup of the three main points of any instrument, really. We're just using an electric guitar here because this is a cool guitar. It's brand new. It's fresh out of the box. It's a good example for this thing. So the first thing I checked was the relief. Second thing I checked was the nut slot height. And then, and only then, I went over and I put the action up to where I wanted it. If I wanted to, I could come in and fine-tune this action a little bit from the starting point right here, and I could take a screwdriver and adjust it up and down a little bit, quarter of a turn, eighth of a turn at some point, if I wanted to play with that. And when I found something that was like super magical setup to this particular individual guitar, then I would come back and I would measure everything and I would write it down and I would record it for posterity. I don't like to push my actions as low as they can go, because when you set an action up as low as it will absolutely go, then you are going to be riding right on the edge of fret buzz, and you're also going to be riding right on the edge of, you're going to have problems with high and low frets. You'd like to think your frets are perfect all the time, and they won't be. You get a little bit of wear on one fret, it's going to cause a high fret on the next one. Fret might pop up just a little bit of time. So I like to have a little bit of forgiveness in my action, and I'm going to set it up a little bit from what I would consider my lowest absolute action. But if you want to play with that, you absolutely can. At this point, you've got a setup that is pretty snug in the ballpark. You're not only in the ballpark, you're like infield. You're pretty close. You're pretty close. The last thing that you're going to do is you can check the intonation of the guitar. Now, I already checked this one, and the intonation is pretty good. And again, this is something that I'm going to mess with maybe later on if I want to. And to check the intonation, I don't like to use harmonics like some people do. I would use the actual fretted note. So I get my strobe tuner out, which I have on my phone, and I have a Peterson strobe tuner. Hit this string open, hit it fretted. The reason I do it fretted instead of harmonics is mathematically harmonics are not a true, they're not true. If you have any kind of dents, any kind of dirt on the string, anything like that, the harmonic may not ring exactly true. I don't play harmonics. I play them, but I don't use harmonics as my main bread and butter. The main bread and butter is fretting a chord, And when you fret a chord, it's a fretted note. So therefore, I use fretted notes. And so I hit that string open, I fret it at the 12th fret, and if it's sharp or flat, then I adjust my saddle correctly. So if it's sharp, you're going to move your saddle backwards. If it's flat, you're going to move your saddle forwards. And that's all there is really to tuning this. You work your way across like that. I don't do that until I have got the action set, because you're going to affect the intonation of the guitar by your action. So in other words, if your strings were right barely off the fret, you don't have to push them down very much. You're not bending the open string to bring it to the fret, and your saddle is going to be in a slightly different location. If your action is way up here, you take that open string, and to bring it down to the fret, you're actually bending it. So this movement from this open string down to the fret is exactly the same as if you bent the string sideways this much. So you're bringing it down to here, and you're bending the open string, and in that case you're going to have to correct it by moving the saddle backwards to correct for that high action bend coming down there. So don't set your saddles until you've done everything else. You've got the gauge of strings that you want, and so forth. And I've already taken a quick look at this one, and it's pretty good. So this, here, I'll show you, okay? Let's turn the piggy on. I'm just trying to not make the video too darn long. So I've got the strobe tuner on here. There it is on my phone. And it's certainly good enough for this. You definitely can put the guitar into the playing position if you want, and some guitars are more sensitive to that than others. I'm not really worried about it right now. I usually set it here, and then I check it the other way, and usually they're close enough. Most people cannot fret accurately enough anyways. Almost everybody pulls down a little bit, pushes up a little bit, or presses too hard on the fret and bends the string that way. So for you to be that picky about the intonation as you're fretting, it'd be perfect. So let's see what we got. We got an open E, and this is what it is. We're going to fret it. It's dead on, okay? You don't even have to get it in tune, but I like to. This one's flat. Yeah, that's a little bit flat. Check with some other notes. Yeah, it's going flat. So, we need to move it forward, right? I need to take that bridge out and move it around the other way so you can get to it from the rear. But, we can get to it here. So, it's flat, and needs to come forward. So, one of the easiest things to do is just get the string out of the way. Pick it up. Pull it over here, get it out of the way. Sounds cool, doesn't it? This way. Let's put it out there, see how we're looking. Les Paul, Strat, anything, it's always a good idea to, when you move it, go ahead and take a screwdriver and push against that saddle. Make sure you've got it where it's supposed to be. There we go. I mean, you can hear it, you know. Okay, that looks good. Anyway, you just work your way across the guitar like that. Yeah, I made one small adjustment on the A string. No big deal. And that's probably because, again, my action, well, I raised my action. It should have gone sharp, so it might have not have been exactly right. But I'm going to check the rest of the strings while I'm standing here. So that's the last step in here, is intonating it, and then that's it. And anything that you do to the tailpiece or wrapping the tip piece, that to me is more of a sound thing, possibly a little bit of a playability setup. But we've done the big three, okay, the big three: relief, nut, action. Then the intonation is pretty critical. I'm not going to mess with the pickups too much. What we did today is we looked at playability setup. And when you start messing with the pickups and things like that, which your person can do, you're dealing with sound setups. I don't know the guitar yet. It just came out of the box. So I'm going to play a little bit and get to know it before I mess with the pickups. And I think it's probably unlikely that I actually will mess with the pickups that much. I'm not a big pickup messer-upper, you know. I'll adjust them to where they're good, and then I just work with the guitar. Okay? I'm not one of those guys that has this magic spot that I have to be in. I play the guitar. I do like a setup. I do like a feel. There's a certain thing I want here. So, all right, there we go. Pretty guitar, you know. That's cool. I've been after these for a while, so. All right, maybe I'll do a better, longer review of it later, but this is just a quick setup. Stuff that you can do.